You know, the story of the early church is packed with these incredible, dramatic turning points, but few are as intense as the one we're digging into today. It's the story of a man named Stephen, who just explodes onto the scene and almost instantly raises the stakes for everyone. His stand really sets the stage for persecution, martyrdom, and, ironically, the massive expansion of the Christian message across the world. So right out of the gate, we meet Stephen. And here's the thing. He's not one of the original 12 apostles. He's a new face, a new force. And his introduction, it's electric. A man full of God's grace and power. The wonders and signs he's doing, these aren't just little tricks. They are powerful, undeniable signs that validate the message of Jesus. And, as you can imagine, people were paying attention. And this, right here, is absolutely crucial. The power of the Holy Spirit wasn't some exclusive gift for the top brass. Stephen was a deacon. He was appointed to help with food distribution, with administration, yet here he is moving in the same kind of miraculous power as the apostles. It's this radical idea that an ordinary servant of the community could have an absolutely extraordinary impact. So, yeah, while Stephen's official role might have started with serving tables to make sure the widows and the community were cared for, his ministry just couldn't be boxed in. The power of the Spirit just pushed him out into the public square, turning him into this incredible witness and debater for the faith. Okay, so let's geek out on the language for just a second because it's so specific. In the original Greek, full of grace and power, pleres charitos kai dynameos, it's way more than just saying he was a nice guy who could do cool stuff. It points to this really deep internal reality. Grace is this divine favor, this inner beauty from his connection with God. And that produced power, an outward, undeniable, effective force. As you can probably guess, a ministry this public and this powerful is not going to fly under the radar for long. It was really only a matter of time before it attracted some serious opposition, setting up this head-on collision of worldviews. And here they are. Stephen's opponents step up, and they're from the synagogue of the freedmen. Now, these were Jews from all over the Roman Empire who had returned to Jerusalem. And because they had come from far away, they were often even more passionate, more protective of Jewish tradition than the locals. So when they hear Stephen, they don't see a fulfillment of their faith. They see a threat to the very core of it. So they decide to take him on, right? Let's have a debate. But the text is crystal clear. They were totally, completely outmatched. And this wasn't just them losing an argument. It was a spiritual defeat. They thought they were debating a man, but they were actually confronting the wisdom and the spirit that he spoke with. There was just no comeback. And this is where we see a timeless and pretty ugly tactic. When you can't win the argument with facts and logic, what do? You change the game. You attack the person. Unable to counter Stephen's truth, his opponents pivot. They move from an open debate to a secret campaign of manipulation and lies. This wasn't some spontaneous mob, no. This was a calculated plot, and it unfolds in 4 distinct steps. First, they secretly find and bribe some guys to lie. Second, they use those lies to whip up the public into a frenzy. Third, they ride that wave of manufactured outrage to violently grab Stephen. And finally, they drag him before the Sanhedrin, the highest court in the land. This wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a straight-up conspiracy. And the charges they cook up? I mean, these are the most serious accusations you could possibly make in that culture. They twist his words into blasphemy against Moses, against God, against the Holy Temple, against the law itself. These are the very pillars of their entire identity. They claim he's saying Jesus is going to destroy everything they hold sacred, which is a total distortion of the message that Jesus actually came to fulfill it all. So there he is. Stephen is on trial for his life, facing a hostile court, false witnesses, the whole thing. But then, right in the middle of this very human, very corrupt trial, something supernatural happens. God himself decides to weigh in. As every single person on that high council is staring him down, they all see his face begin to transform. It becomes like the face of an angel. Just let that image sit with you for a second. Surrounded by hatred and lies, his face is radiating divine peace and glory. Now, this angelic countenance isn't just some poetic flourish, it's a huge theological statement. It directly echoes the story of Moses, whose face literally shone after he had been in God's presence. So this was God's visible stamp of approval on Stephen. It was a sign of his innocence, a divine endorsement of his message, and proof of the kind of peace God gives you even in the absolute worst of circumstances. Okay, so Stephen's story is incredible history, but it's way more than that. It's a blueprint. It's a challenge. It forces us to ask, what does his legacy mean for us right here, right now? So what can we actually take away from the life and the stand of this remarkable deacon, this first martyr? Let's break down some of the big lessons. First, and this is huge, the Spirit's power is for everyone. You don't need a special title to make a difference. Second, if you're speaking truth faithfully, you're going to face opposition. It's not a sign you're failing. It's probably a sign you're succeeding. Third, get ready for people to use misinformation when they can't handle the facts. And finally, maybe the most important lesson of all, God's presence gives a peace and a boldness that just doesn't make sense, especially when you need it the most. And that leaves us with one last really crucial question. Stephen's story is this amazing model of courage under fire. So when your own faith gets challenged, when you face opposition, what are you going to rely on? Your own clever arguments, your own ability to win a debate? Or will you, like Stephen, lean into a wisdom and a peace that can only come from the Spirit?